This isn't going to be a normal video for me. As you can tell by all of the PC hardware around, that's what I'm normally reviewing, but since I'm an avid mountain biker in my spare time, when WAU reached out and offered me the chance to review their 6th generation e-bike, well, I couldn't say no. Now, to make it clear, this video isn't sponsored by them. They did provide me the bike for review for a few weeks, and if you use the code in the description, I do get a kickback as well as you get a discount. So to make it clear, this is a normal review, it's not sponsored, but I do have an affiliate commission set up based on the information in the description. Now, taking a look at the bike itself, it's kind of a hybrid design. What that means is that it's not quite a road bike and it's not quite a mountain bike. It's kind of a mix in between, although it's definitely more of a commuter bike than it is anything remotely off-road. I say that because it has relatively slim, relatively low profile tires, although it does also have a front suspension fork. The more important thing though is that it has a motor or a hub motor built into the rear wheels. It's a 250 watt hub motor, and in the center of the frame inside their rather nicely designed battery case is their 886 watt-hour battery. Now, what makes this bike unique compared to the sorts of ones that you can pick up at your local retailer like Halfords here in the UK is that they do not use the standard Bosch bottom bracket motor, instead, like I said, using the motor that's built into the rear wheel. And also, probably more importantly, this can do up to a 100-mile range on a charge. Now, I say up to there because I have a de-restricted bike, which means that when you're pedaling away, it can support you up to 20 miles an hour instead of the factory default 15. Now, that does mean that your range will decrease. I rode about 20 to 25 miles before the battery said that it was at 60%, and a quick sum will tell you that that means you'll have about 60 to 70 miles of range on a full charge. Now, I suspect that with the standard mode, or the 50 mile an hour limit, that would mean around about 100 miles of range, which is really very impressive, but I would actually prefer to have the de-restricted bike and the lower range, as being able to almost keep up with traffic was actually a lot better and felt a lot safer than riding a lot slower than the traffic. Now, I also said support there in air quotes because the pedal assistance isn't really pedal assistance as much as you pedal to activate the motor, and then the motor will speed up to whatever speed you've set it to using the handlebar controls. And that's pretty much it. As long as you keep pedaling, it will keep going at the speed that it is predefined to go to based on the mode from 0, which is off, to 5, which is the de-restricted one, and that's pretty much it. I was able to get the bike up to around 25 miles an hour with actually assisting or pedaling, and it was a lot easier than if I was trying to pedal a normal bike at 25 miles an hour, but it isn't quite pedal assistance as we know it. Now, there's one note here, which is that when you pedal, or when you start pedaling, the motor doesn't actually start assisting until 1 to 2 seconds after you started pedaling. That can be pretty difficult to get it off the line, and as we'll talk more about in a second, the gearing isn't brilliant, which means, again, getting off the line at a set of traffic lights, for example, can be a pretty painful experience, certainly more than it could be. Now, you can purchase a throttle from WAU directly that you can add after the fact and basically just use it like an electric bicycle, electric motorcycle, and that could make it a much more usable experience, but I do have a few notes on that in a second. One of the other really unique things about the bike is its lights. On the back of the frame, you will find rear tail lights. And not just taillights either, you also have brake lights which activate when you pull the brake levers, either of them, although that does also have a 1 to 2 second delay as well. And you also have indicators with a motorcycle style switch on the handlebars. This is a really nice touch. It looks really very well built into the frame, and especially with the brake lights, they do look remarkably bright. Although the one note I would have is that I wouldn't forgo using hand signals, especially for indication, over just using the indicators, because most road users wouldn't necessarily know to look at them to know which way you're going. But on the front, which I would argue, especially if you're riding in an urban environment, it's probably more important, all they've included, at least for my sample anyway, is a aftermarket add-on clip-on light. It's also pretty terrible. It does a better job at blinding you than it does showing anything in front, and only is set to a flash mode, which means that you're only annoying the car drivers, you know, that are oncoming and blinding yourself constantly too. I'd much prefer a much better throw of light out of this, and realistically, why couldn't they have done something like they did with the front, where maybe the whole front of the steer tube is a front-facing light, even if it's just a diffused light, and then you can add your own long throw light later to the handlebars. That would be a better option, at least in my opinion. Now, actually riding it felt pretty good. The frame is plenty stiff and feels like a really quite good quality, and the geometry setup is good too, which means it's relatively easy to ride. You don't have that much suspension, especially on the rear, which a lot of the weight ends up being transferred to the rear, and so the ride quality can be a little harsh and a little less forgiving than you might like, and so you might want a padded saddle or some padded shorts for it. But overall it felt pretty good. The tyres don't instill all that much confidence, especially when I took it on a gravel track. I was hesitant to corner at basically any speed on it, but on the road it was good enough. I can't imagine riding on anything other than the road, and especially if it's wet, I would feel a lot more hesitant to actually ride on it, but overall not too bad. And I think that brings me nicely onto the part selection. Now, WAU manufacture the frame, the battery, the controller and the battery casing, but the motor, the standard charger, and basically all of the standard bike components are all bought in. Now, that's not a bad thing, but for £2,800 as it's currently listed for on their site, you would really hope that they are very good quality parts. And unfortunately, they don't quite live up to that standard. They do use hydraulic disc brakes, which is very nice, but they're Tektro brand rather than a more standard Shimano or SRAM. Now, that's not a bad thing. The Tektro ones do a pretty reasonable job. They have plenty of stopping power, and I found that the tyres were the limiting factor rather than the brakes, but still, for this kind of money, it would be nice to see better quality single finger braking levers, for example. The group set and drivetrain is possibly the worst offender here though. Specifically the rear derailleur, which looks to be one of the cheapest 8-speed rear derailleurs you can find, is not fantastic. Especially when you go over any level of bump, the chain slaps like crazy, it doesn't shift overly well, and especially because the chain is probably 1 to 3 links too long, the chain can fall off quite regularly as well. The thing is though, there's a big catch to all of these complaints. WAU seems to be phenomenal at listening to feedback, and since they are an incredibly small company and they're planning on moving their entire production line, at least for the parts that they manufacture anyway, to Nottingham here in the UK, they're very quick to make changes. All of the feedback that I've given in this video, I've already given to them, and a lot of the things that I've talked about, they're either planning on fixing for the current model or for an upcoming one. The rear derailleur is something that they said they were interested in swapping to a clutch derailleur instead, which would mean you would have a lot less chain slap, the chain would be a lot less likely to fall off, it should shift a bit better, and they said that even for their current production models, as in the ones that they already have in boxes in their warehouse, they might be swapping over the chain length to a couple of links shorter to help eliminate any current generation problems. The delay on the brake lights and the motor is something that they've actually programmed in based on previous feedback, and specifically for the brake lights, they're looking to deprogram or reprogram even for the current models, and potentially you might even be able to have your existing bike, if you already own one of these, have that reflashed and have that delay removed too. For the motors, that might be a little bit more of a contentious issue, but if they were to fix that, then the idea that you would need a throttle would kind of be irrelevant for me, because the bike would accelerate off the line with no problems and make it a lot easier to ride. As for the front lights, they're looking to replace the clip-on one that they included with my sample to one that is built into the front fork and uses the bike's built-in battery and controlled by the bike rather than a clip-on on an accessory bike, an accessory light instead. That may be for the next generation model, but the fact that they're willing to take all of this feedback and make all of these changes is a really, really good sign. Now, like I said, all of those changes may be coming in either the current model or a revised next generation model, or even just the next batch of bikes. But for the time being, for the 20 or so bikes that they still have left in stock right now, you can get them for 30% off, which puts them at around about £2,000. Now, that is the affiliate commission I was talking about, so if you use the code in the description, I get a kickback from you purchasing that bike, but for that price, it makes it a lot more of a compelling option. And the really good news is that for the next versions, the next batches, whatever, they're hoping to be able to bring the price down to around about £2,000 full time, which again makes it a lot better of a value proposition. As it stands with that 30% discount, it seems like a pretty compelling option. The battery life is probably a bit overkill, as most of my friends that I've spoken to who do actually commute on bicycles said they wouldn't ever commute over about 30 miles a day, but still, it's kind of nice to have. Especially for that price, even if you bought a current generation model, I think that would make more sense that you could fairly happily replace things like the rear derailleur yourself and still be fairly happy with the bike you got, and especially if they can make those changes to the front lights and especially those software tweaks, as having the brake lights come on after I've almost come to a complete stop seems a little strange, and of course the motor actually helping you off the line. That'd be very nice to see. At its normal retail price of around £2,800, I'm not sure that I could as easily recommend it. It doesn't seem like quite as good a value proposition. Maybe with all of the changes that we've talked about, that may make a bit more sense, but as it stands, especially if they can keep the price under or around £2,000, it seems like a very impressive option. Now, with all of that said, this is a kind of new topic for me, so I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you think of this style of video? What do you think of the bike itself? And if you're interested, I would love to hear your thoughts on it in the comments down below. Now, like I said, if you want to pick up one of these bikes, you can use the link in the description, and I assume a promo code that comes with it. Like I said, that is the affiliate commission, so I get a kickback if you were to purchase that, but you do also get, at least currently anyway, 30% off if you do use it. Now, otherwise, there is a whole load of other links in the description you can check out, and ways to support me and the channel if you don't fancy purchasing fairly expensive bicycles. Things like merch or hoodies or t-shirts like this one, or a load of other cool designs. There's Patreon if you want to get ad-free videos and support me directly, or a load of other affiliate links to people like Overclock UK if you're buying from them, and just a load of other stuff too. There will be some more videos over there that you can check out. None of e-bike reviews, but there'll be some other videos you can watch. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more videos like this one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Or should I say, videos not quite like this one. Either way, that is pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, leave those in the comments down below, and we'll see you all in the next one.